Hi everyone, welcome to AG Triathlon, the podcast dedicated to telling the amazing stories behind top AG or age group performances in long distance triathlon. Today I have with me Justin Riele, who recently won the Oceanside 70.3 Ironman championships. Hey Justin, how are you doing?
Hey, how's it going, Adam? Great to be here.
Very good, thank you. Justin, so you just won Oceanside. You combined a 24:52 swim, 2:12 bike, and 1:19 run. First of all, congratulations. And please run us through the race. Start us off with the swim.
Yeah, thanks, man. Still pretty stoked about it, even a few weeks later. The race went as well as it possibly could have, I think. It's definitely my best 70.3 ever, and just left it all out there and finished on top of the amateur field, which is always where I'm hoping to be. So, the swim was great. It was pretty uneventful despite having some pretty big waves and surf coming in. I think that, I don't know, 4 or 5 foot break, something like that. Definitely a little bit overwhelming, but super smooth water. And so running into the water, getting out there, I'd practiced, a few times leading up to the race, which was great. And, felt pretty confident out there and just settled into my stroke. Ultimately I was hoping to race against one guy, Jan Stepinski, who I knew was the heavy favorite for the race. We've raced each other, probably 7, 8 times now, and he's beat me in every race. So I knew I was gunning for him. He's a super strong swim and biker, and went out, found him around minute 15, and I knew it would be about a 25-minute swim, and saw that we were neck and neck, just stroke for stroke. And we took a stroke, locked eyes. It was a pretty awesome moment. And I figured, okay, I'm swimming really well if I'm with Jan. And so we just swam stroke for stroke, side by side, all the way through the next 10 minutes until we ended up getting out of the water right at sub 25, which was my best swim to date. So, pretty good. Knew I was at the front of the amateur field for that swim, which is definitely, where I want to be. And, it's a pretty good start to a good day.
And so you come out first or second, right? You're neck to neck with Jan. Tell us about transition. I mean, T1 is very important, I guess, to get a good start for the bike.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've learned a lot in transitions over the last few years. I started off not so long ago as a newbie triathlete with, hairy legs, and I put on arm warmers in transition and bike gloves, and I hobble out in my shoes, and, one thing after another, you slowly take that time down from 7 minutes to 2. And last year I actually lost a race. I didn't lose the whole race, but I ended up in third instead of second because I lost a full minute to one of my competitors in transition in T1, who, left the shoes on the bike and did a flying mount. And I'm hobbling and dropped my bike and dropped my chain. It was this whole mess. So this time around was 7 out of 10, I'd say. Basically, I got into transition. I ran really hard, knowing it was a little bit of a dynamic of who's going to get on the bike first, and are you going to be able to hang on the other person's wheel at all, legally at 6 bike lengths, kind of like the pros do, or are you going to be able to just drop them and they'll never see you again? And so I was determined, hey, I'm going to get out on the bike and just start smashing. And so I got through T1. Me and Jan get to our bikes right next to each other at the same time. And he later told me he actually stopped and had a banana. So I was like, dude, why did you have a banana in a 70.3 in T1 when you're winning the race? That's a rookie move. But he's like, yeah, bad Ironman habits. And we kind of laughed it off. He's like, I'll never be doing that again. And I said, yeah, man, I learned that lesson last year. You have to race every second of the race, including the transitions. Once you're at a certain level, there's no rest. And so I finally did that this race, and it paid off because I was able to get on the bike 45 seconds before him, and never saw him again. So that was actually where I took the lead in the race, which was pretty surprising. I will say I left my shoes on the bike and I tried to do a flying mount despite having literally never practiced, and I completely dropped my bike and almost crashed. And there's a video of it on YouTube. Somebody else was able to capture that beautiful moment, but it's pretty funny and slightly embarrassing, but I guess I went on to win. So it's okay.
Yeah, I'll try to include that video at the end of this one.
It's a good one.
Yeah, no. Well, actually, I was watching the pro race, and it looked like the beginning of the bike was quite packed. Steve McKenna got a drafting penalty for not overtaking in time. Did you have any traffic, or was it clear sailing?
Yeah, fortunately for me, it was actually really clear. I got out there, and you basically start picking off the pro women and eventually the pro men one by one when you're at the front of the age group race. And it's kind of a nice spot to be because you have plenty of space. There's a few guys chasing you down behind you, but there's plenty of open road. It's not congested. You get to kind of see, one woman after another. You see Riele, and then you see Chelsea and Daniela and Holly, and I know all their names. I follow the sport so closely. It's fun. I'm like, whoa, like I'm blown by Daniela Reef right now. Like that's a first, it's a cool feeling for sure. Wasn't that long ago where I raced Kona and every pro woman probably kicked my ass there. So it was fun to like really basically, go through all of them and kind of tag each one by one and just have that next marker to chase after. And I was just using that as my fuel, just sticking to my power. Legs felt great, but I also rode really hard, but fortunately at the front of the race there's no drafting. There's no ability to draft. I guess if I really bridged up to the pro men that were really, really fast, there could be, but anyone that I'm able to catch with a 5-minute deficit, I'm faster than, and I don't, I basically just go right by them and they can't hold the wheel. So, maybe someday if I race pro, there'll be a little bit more of that pack dynamic where you have to actually work with other people. But for me, it's very much a solo individual time trial. That probably would have been a different story had Jan come out of the T1 with me. I'd imagine neither of us would have let the other person drop each other. And it would have been a different story.
Yeah, so you're picking off pros, women and men, just hammering it at the front. Are you aware at all at some point of the gap that you have?
It's a good question. Every race is different. At Oceanside particularly, like there was an out and back little section about mile 10. So I saw that I had about 1 minute on Jan, which I actually thought was a lot. And it is at that point in the race where I was like, wow, I was right with him in T1 and now I have a minute on him and it's only 10 miles in. So I figured either he had a bad T1 or I was putting a little bit of time into him on the bike. It turns out it was more about the bad T1, I think. And, we were riding about the same. I ended up pushing, I ended up putting in 2 or 3 minutes on the bike on him total at the end of it because I just felt really good those last 15 miles. But, most of the time, no, you don't know where you are. You have to just ride your race. And so for the last 40 miles, 45 miles, you're just riding your power, trying to kind of always find that edge of, okay, am I over biking, but am I pushing it to be able to open up enough of a gap for me to hang on the run? I definitely went into this race, knowing it was a top race, but optimizing for Ironman St. George in a few weeks. So, and I had just raced Oceanside in October and actually lost the amateur race by 15 seconds there. To a guy named Andrew Hall who ran me down. He ran a 1:14 and I had a great race there, but he was just better on the day. And so I kind of went into this race like win or bust. I'm going to go all out on the swim, all out on the bike, and then just hang on for life on the run. And it paid off, but I was willing to take some big risks on the bike and push the climbs at much higher FTP and watts than I normally would have approached it with. With that, like I knew where I was coming off the bike because my coach was there and she screamed, you have a 4-minute lead, which was exactly what I had in October. So I didn't take that as like, oh, I got this in the bag. I took that as, all right, it's going to be a painful run where I'm looking over my shoulder and I can take it a little bit more conservatively, but you never really know where you are in the age group race. You certainly don't have refs telling you exactly where everybody is.
Yeah, sure. So therefore, how does your pacing strategy look like? Did you do like a course recon and then you had like, I don't know, for each section you had a target what that you wanted to keep, or how do you decide about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you can't do a course recon at Oceanside. So fun fact, it's in Camp Pendleton, which is a military base. And so the only time they really let you into that base is on race day, or unless you're in the military or a guest of somebody in the military. So the only time I had ridden that course was last October, which was the first time I rode it. It's actually a fairly technical course in the sense that there are like all these little bike paths and lots of sharp turns. And so if you really ride it really hard and aggressively, which was my plan, like you can make up, I think, a minute on, at the same power. And so, in October, I rode it at 300 normalized power, 300 watts average, and rode 215. on a perfect conditions day. And then this race, I also rode at 300 exactly, like literally to the watt. And I rode 212. And I think that's better position, maybe a little faster bike, made a little upgrade to my felt FRD, which shout out to felt and NV. I also ran an NV disc wheel, which was amazing. So those like faster setup plus better aero position, plus just riding more aggressively, led to a faster time ultimately, which is cool to see at the same exact power, knowing that those are like those small marginal gains start to add up, I think. But, no, I think my pacing strategy was really ride at 300 watts whenever I can, no more, no less. And on the climbs, push 350 watts on the first 3-minute punchy climb. So there's this one like super steep climb that's 3 or 4 minutes at like 18% grade, and then another 15-minute climb. So I think if you ever do this course, there's 2 climbs to really plan out, which is your first one and your second one, and how hard you're going to go on those 2. And I knew for me, using a little best bike split and looking at the power ratio. And actually, I talked to Lionel Sanders a couple of days before the race and asked him, like, how hard do you push those climbs? And he's like, all out. Like, you can make up so much time on those super steep, punchy climbs that if you're not pushing power, you're losing. You're going backwards. So, yeah, I ended up doing 370 watts for 3 minutes and 320 watts for 15 minutes going up those 2. And then I cruised the downhills a little bit more than I typically do. And I think that also played into a better overall time.
Yeah, great. Sounds like your strategy paid off. So therefore, you mentioned that you get off the bike, you have 4-minute lead. How are you feeling going into T2? How is your T2? And yeah, do you think you have it? You mentioned you didn't think you had it won, but you had a good feeling already?
Yeah, I mean, the race changes quite a bit for me getting off the bike. I mean, I came into T2 like screaming, singing, like super high on life. I just love riding my bike. And the joke is like my coach and my fiance are like, yeah, if he comes into T2 singing on the bike, we know it's a good day. And like I was feeling really good. I was like fueled up, calories were good despite losing a bottle. But I felt really good. And then I get on the run and like mile 1, I'm like, oh shit, this is what running feels like again. Like for me, it's just hard. So I have no running background. I started off in this sport as like running 210, half marathon, 150 in an open half marathon, and like just have slowly chipped away 5 minutes here and there for 5 years now. And so I knew running sub 120 was my goal. I did it last year. I ran 118. And just went out and immediately did at Oceanside. I ran 118. Yeah. And I actually cramped in that race for a full minute on the side of a barrier after running up one of the steep, punchy hills too fast. And so it was actually, my moving time was like 1:17:30. My elapsed time was 1:18:30. And that actually also cost me the race because I got caught at mile 13.1. Anyway, that's racing. You cramp. Some days you have it, some days you don't. Some days you bike too hard and you cramp on mile 7 of the run. So I was just like, don't cramp, don't reach. I have a 4-minute lead. Just go out of 6 flat, which is right at that 118, 119 pace. And heart rate was good, but legs were heavy for sure from the bike. I was actually injured. I had an Achilles tendonitis issue in January, so I didn't run for a full month. And so I'd only been running for 6 weeks before Oceanside, following an off season. So like I had the speed, but I didn't have the endurance, really. And so I was just like, all right, don't fade and just hang on for life. And so just went in, tried to be confident, looked at my watch. I thought I was like on mile 3 and I was on mile 0.53. I still remember like, oh man, that's not good. Don't look at your watch again, and that's like, for me, it was just all about feel, keeping the cadence up, just running through that kind of like mental checklist of 15 different things that I probably cycle through constantly in a run just to stay focused and not let my mind wander. That's a big part of it. It's just like staying on it. And then, I think Oceanside's fun because it's 2 out and back loops. And so you do really start to see where you are in the race. And I'm watching the pro race a little bit, but really trying to, get my time on Jan and see how fast he's closing the gap if I just hold 6:10, which I can do, pretty well. It's like my marathon pace in an open marathon is right at like 6:02. And so I know it's kind of like my long, steady aerobic pace. And so, yeah, it was good, man. I mean, I just ultimately was able to hang on and never have to like reach for that last gear. I was hurting on the last 5K, but there was no sprint or collapse at the finish line. It was all smiles. And definitely was like aware of what was going on versus some of the other races where I just like hit the deck and I'm just completely gassed at the end of the race.
So tell us about the feeling of, you know, going in the finish line, knowing you had won the race with your family and coach there. For those of us that don't know that feeling.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I mean, it's a funny feeling. Like there's no glory winning an amateur race, right? Particularly when there's a pro race. There's a little bit of it if you truly have a wave start and you get to break the tape and there's cameras and whatever. Like that could be cool. I have not experienced that ever before, but you know, I'm racing 70.3 Coeur d'Alene this year, which I'm hoping to be the overall amateur. I'll be racing my buddy Devin Volk, who's a great close friend and teammate of mine, and we've had many battles. But that'll be a great race where, like, yeah, the winner gets to break the tape and be the actual winner and the fastest person on that course on that day. You know, when you race these Ironman 70.3 amateur races, you know, as an age grouper, like the whole focus of the race is on the pros, rightfully so. They're the fastest athletes on the course on that day. But, you know, that doesn't undermine or take away from anything from the competition that we have going on as amateurs against each other. Like every guy at the front of that overall race knows each other and knows who the guys are. Like I can tell you everything about Miguel Maddox and Jan Stupinski and, you know, Isaac Diaz, Angel Rodriguez, Eric Engel, like all these guys that were top 5 or 6 on that day that were in contention for the overall win. Reynard Picard, John Savage, like there's so many guys. And so I know who's the strong swimmers, who's the bikers, who's the runners, who do I have to watch out for? Like if they say they're not competing against each other and they're just competing against themselves, they're lying at that level of the sport. I think you just go to a certain point where you're chasing wins and podiums. Yeah, of course you got to race yourself and you can't worry about what other people are doing. But at the end of the day, like the front of that field is competitive and it is a little bit more of head-to-head racing than I think we're seeing before as a return to COVID, where you have all these fast guys doing all the same races. Like St. George is going to be a slugfest, despite having, you know, unfortunately age group wave starts that are 20 to 30 minutes separated, which makes it like pretty much just your own age group that you're racing. You know, you're still going to have the overall standings, which count for something when you click that tracker. I guess maybe it's just a confidence thing, but it's fun and it feels great to win. You know, it was my goal, and I was the first guy that I know of like to beat Jan Stupinski, who's kind of just like dominated the amateur field for a long time. So I got some nice, you know, I like Jan a lot. Like he's a friend and I have nothing against him, but like somebody had to beat that guy, you know, like, and I was like, why not me? You know, like that guy has just been so dominant. We always joke like, man, that guy should be a pro. He's so fast. Like, you know, sandbagger on the amateur field. He wins races by 10, 15 minutes oftentimes. And so, yeah, it just felt good to like prove to myself. He's been my carrot, like that I've been chasing all winter, honestly, just something to keep me motivated. Nothing personal, but just like, you know, literally I have a sign on my wall that says Jan. And like, I was looking at it for like 6 months on my trainer. So yeah, you do some psycho shit to chase it down. Right? You gotta like really get in the zone. And, but it felt good, you know, not going to lie.
Yeah. You're definitely not racing against yourself at this point. I feel like, so yeah. No, that's great. Tell us a bit about your training. Like, what does it take to get to this level? I mean, you know, as age group triathletes, we work, we train really hard, and I mean, in my case, in any case, I'm nowhere near your level. So tell us a bit about that. How does a week for you look like? What are your key workouts? Swim, bike, run? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, how do you get to this level? I mean, there's no secret. I'd say like consistency is the only thing, and years. Like there's no shortcut, and there's no fast way to do it. Is there the other thing? And I was told that in the first 2 years. I'm like, that's BS, whatever, but I'll get fast. But the truth is like, it takes a long time to get good at the long endurance stuff. And I think I'm still on that trajectory, particularly for the full distances and stuff. So, you know, doing something every day is what I tell most people to do. It's like, you can't really get good at this sport by doing 3 or 4 workouts a week, even if you crush them. Like it has to be 6 to 7 days a week, 11 months a year. And so that's really how I got good, is the short answer. Is just like, you build it into your day-to-day lifestyle so that you don't even think about you don't even think about it as a chore or a workout anymore. It's just like, just what you do, just another part of your day. Like you eat breakfast, you know, you watch Netflix at night and you work out or whatever it is, or you know, and so for me, it's consistency. I think there's a couple like secrets that have been helpful for me, which are like running short and running easy, often. And so as I was progressing in the sport, going from that like 150 half marathon down to sub 130, like for me, a big part of that was just building volume, and frequency and number of runs, but not by doing any hero runs or hero track workouts or these big long 12 to 14 mile runs. Like I was just always running like 4 miles at 8:30 pace for 30 minutes, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And then if you can do your long run on Sunday, whatever it is. But so is that was just building aerobic fitness and just learning to run. The other thing is getting in a swim group, I would say, is like a big thing. I was part of the Purple Patch swim group in San Francisco for several years, reinvigorated me in the sport, you know, being around like-minded athletes. Like it's really hard endeavor to take on solo for years. And so I try to do as much group training as I possibly can. And that's great for me. And that helps a ton, I think, just with morale and confidence and motivation mostly. And then, you know, long rides, like there's no substitute for riding 100, 130 miles by yourself outside on a TT bike over and over and over. Like I've done that now for like almost every Saturday for the last 3 or 4 months. And it's really tough. Fortunately, I'm lucky enough with my lifestyle right now. You know, it's my fiance, Lauren, and we live in Las Vegas together, and we have no kids, and she is in grad school just studying her butt off like 80 hours a week. And so I have a ton of time basically all day on Saturday. I'm free. And so, yeah, most of those days are just spent long days in the saddle in the desert. And I love riding my bike. And so I've done some big volume stuff over the last 4 or 5 years here and there. Like I'll do a 3-day coast ride over 400 miles every year. And I'll just continuously stay on the riding volume, which I think makes a big difference. And that's why I'm a strong cyclist. There's no secret to that either. And then get a coach, you know, at a certain point, a couple years in, I started working with a woman, ex-female pro triathlete, Lauren Goss out of Boulder, Colorado. She's amazing. And we've worked together for 3 years. And she's really she's the reason I have gotten to the point where I'm at, from like, you know, being a 420, 70.3 athlete to kind of 4 hours now. You know, I just listen to her and just follow the plan. I don't even have to think about it now. And she's looking at the data, looking at the paces, the threshold efforts, the power, the heart rate, all of that, and deciding what I can handle, what I can't. You know, we work through that. We talk every day. So that's a huge part of the equation. Once you get to a certain level, is just not doing it yourself and leaning on that person that knows best.
Yeah, I completely agree with the coach thing. I mean, once I got a coach a couple months back, it really pointed out how badly I was training by myself, just, you know, playing it by the ear. So I definitely can confirm that. But what about your days? Like, how would a typical day in your life look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, my weeks are pretty lined up. I travel a ton. I go to San Francisco every month for work. I work at a company called Upstart. And, I lead a marketing team there. So I'm busy with full-time job. You know, I'll be there for years and have been in Silicon Valley tech roles for the last 5 or 6 years, which has been great. So basically I work, 9 to 6 on average, I'd say, most days, with a little bit in the evening, some earlier mornings, a little bit of Sunday work, but it's not horrible. Like, it's been a really great work-life balance lately. And it's been, a really fun team to be on. And so that's like, my first focus, despite sometimes wishing I was making, $200,000 a year, as a professional triathlete, but that's not happening anytime soon. And so I'll keep the paychecks coming and put food on the table with a real full-time job. Despite, I know a lot of guys at my level in triathlon are quitting their jobs and coaching triathlon on the side to kind of be lower mid-level pros. That's not going to be for me. But you never know. Never say never. So my typical week, I say all that because it's like morning workouts, evening workouts, most Monday through Fridays. Not going to lie. This year has been a more volume than I've ever done. I would say for the last 3 years, I've averaged between 10 and 15 hours a week. Really low on the lower side of that, with some bigger weeks leading into like full Ironmans or 70.3. I might do like one 15-hour week. But this January, I was just like feeling incredibly motivated for, I don't even know why, really, just sort of like all right, I'm doing St. George and Kona. I've got all these 70.3s. I want to win. Like, I kind of just decided to go all in on the sport. And I've averaged 20 hours a week of training since January now. And that's a first. And I was injured for a little bit, but I've mostly avoided injury, added a ton of swimming volume, ton of biking volume. So a typical week is like, 3 solid 4,000 to 5,000 yard swims in the mornings, always. And 25 to 30 miles of running a week. I'm trying to get that closer to 35 to 40, but I've struggled to do that without getting niggles and little injuries and stuff. And then I ride, anywhere from 150 to 250 miles a week, which is usually like 2 big trainer rides during the week, one easy, one hard, and then a big 100 to whatever, 150 was my longest ride this year, 100 to 150 miles on Saturdays, getting that volume in. And now it's like 2 by 1 hour at Ironman effort as I get closer to the race, locking in that goal wattage for me, which is 265, 270. And then, long run Sunday, easy, usually anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending on the time of year. Just try to stick to the trails, have fun with it. Sometimes I'll do a easy 1.5 hour gravel ride that day, or go to the local cycling coffee shop ride. So that can be a ton of fun, just to mix it in. So I like to, like I said, train with groups. My key sessions are my key sessions for sure. And I'm like totally locked in, sometimes screaming, who knows what in my own head just to get through it and push harder. But most of the time, like I'd say 80% of my training volume is fun. It's easy. It's just consistent.
Yeah, very good. And then therefore, so now you had Oceanside. You mentioned that you're going to St. George in it's like a couple of days now.
2 weeks. Yeah, it's exciting.
2 weeks.
2 weeks from tomorrow.
And then you also mentioned Kona. So how does the rest of the season look like for you?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, St. George, I'm just stoked. It's 2 weeks from tomorrow. I'm ready, as ready as I'm going to be. It's a 2-hour drive for me from Vegas, so it makes it easy and fun. My whole family's going. My fiance's parents are going to go watch their first triathlon, which is going to be hilarious because it's the Ironman World Championship. So it's going to be just like, the most type A, long, ridiculous day they've ever seen. I don't know. They're going to think we're all nuts because we are, I guess, but we're having fun, so that'll be fun. I'm just looking forward to it. And, I want to win my age group there, for sure. And, from there, I've got 70.3 Coeur d'Alene at the end of June. Then I'm getting married the next weekend. So that'll be fun. And, I think other people can relate. I'm doing a little pre-wedding, trip with my fiance to Glacier National Park in Montana and Idaho. And then when there's a little baby 70.3 triathlon thrown in there, at the end, which I'm like, yeah, we're going hiking in Glacier. We're going to have fun. We're going to drink a bunch of cocktails, which we are. Like, I'm not going to really, it'll be a nice taper, but I'm not going to be weird about it and not drink and not hike before this race. It's just for fun. So, and then I'll just show up and race it. It's supposed to be a cool race. And I'm just trying to get these reps in 70.3s. Yeah, exactly. So then I've got, getting married. So I'll take a month off and just relax and spend time with Lauren after that. And, from there, I'll do 70.3 Boulder, 70.3 Santa Cruz, Kona, and 70.3 Worlds 3 weeks later. And then from there, we'll see how the season goes. At that point, might think about taking my pro card and racing in the professional field next year. But not even really thinking about that yet because I still have 6 races left as an amateur that I'm definitely locked into. And I'm just super excited to compete at that level. Like, you win one race, it's like, got to see if you can do it again. Show up consistently is what it's all about in the sport. Anyone can have one good day. So yeah, we'll see how that works out.
So tell us about taking your pro card. You mentioned that you don't actually want to go full pro, but you still want the experience of racing with the pros. Based on what do you make that decision that it's time to go from age group to pro?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I think everyone thinks about it differently. Going full pro is, up for debate what that definition means, right? Like, there's certainly like the Alistair Brownlee and Lionel Sanders of the world who are like making good money and they've done this for years as their full-time career, like they're world class. That's a very different reality for 90% of professional triathletes. I think the PTOs help a little bit for some of the mid-level triathletes, and the sport is growing, which helps, but like, it's never going to be a financial thing for me at all. and so, and our team, Everyman Jack, supports us really, really well as amateurs. So there's really no reason to think about that other career journey for me at this point. Like, it's just I think it's naive for a lot of people who are making that jump. More power to them, chase your dreams. But I have different, I guess, financial and life goals that I'm chasing in my career. And so I'll never let triathlon get in the way of that, I would say, at least for now. Never say never. But for me, it's about having a more dynamic race day, ultimately. I do not feel at this point that I'm like, not getting a ton of joy and competition out of the amateur field. It's awesome. I love race day. I love looking at the guys, like I said, Miguel and Jan and Andrew Hall. There's still guys I haven't beat that are amateurs. So like, why would I jump and, stop racing for the front of the race with a bunch of guys that are just as good or better than me and go race similarly paced guys for 15th to 20th place? That's kind of how I've been thinking about it, I guess, to date. But the reasons to go pro that are super exciting are, one, as a strong swimmer, like, you can be right in this like super dynamic mass swim start when the gun goes off with 40 guys thrashing each other. Like, that is such a cool swim to watch. And every time I see the pros dive in there, I'm like, man, I wish I was in there. Like, I could be working and hanging onto feet and swimming fast and hard, which is just not quite what the amateur swim is like as the rolling start. And then I think the same thing on the bike. For the first time I rode, like, I would have been top 10 pro bike split at Oceanside, which was a first for me. So that was a big confidence booster. If I could keep doing that, could make for a really fun cycling event in the 70.3 race where I could actually be in the mix. And so if that's the truth, then I think my swim would be more dynamic. The bike race would be like a slugfest, and you'd be really racing head to head with guys. The run, I need to improve. I need to be able to run 116 off the bike to be in the mix and be top 10 pro and ever get a paycheck. But like, most pros don't go pro to get a paycheck. And so, I would have been 18th or 19th pro in Oceanside with my time out of about 50, which was the best, I probably would have slated in there, but it's just a different race. So it's hard to say how it would work out. But, ultimately the amateur field's exciting. It's fun for now. But as you progress in the sport, as I have every year, fortunately, and assuming I don't get injured, and still like spending 20 hours of my life a week just with my heart rate up working out, which still kind of like baffles me sometimes. I'm like, man, I could be like speaking 4 languages by now, or like have started multiple companies on the side of my full-time job with the amount of time I pour into this. Like, but if I just keep doing that level of volume and focus that I'm putting into triathlon, like I definitely am going to race in the professional field at some point. I don't want to die not having done that now that I've earned that right.
Yeah, awesome. And tell us about that team you mentioned. So every man jack.
Yeah,
Everyman Jack. So tell us about that team. I from what I see, it's quite a selective team. How does it work?
Yeah, it's just awesome. I'm glad you asked. It's an awesome team, super great group of guys. It's about 70 people across the United States with a few outside of the country. All sorts of different backgrounds, but at the end of the day, we all have triathlon in common. So we're all sort of front of pack age groupers. You have to be recruited to be on the team, basically. There used to be an application process, but now it's mostly referrals from knowing people on the team and putting up, times that are really strong, like front of the overall race. And so at Oceanside, I think we had like 8 guys race, and 4 of them were in the top 10, or 5 of them were in the top 10 overall amateur. And so it's just like a fun group of guys that are really into the sport, but also almost all of us have full-time jobs, careers, doctors, lawyers, military, whatever it is that we're pursuing outside of the sport. And so for us, it's great because we're able to come together around this single brand. Everyman Jack was a company. It's a company for men's grooming products across, things like shampoo, deodorant, shaving cream, sunscreen. And the CEO and founder of that company is also an avid triathlete who ultimately a few years back won his age group at Kona and started this team as a passion project. And it's just grown into something pretty incredible. And some of my best friends now are from the team. And so I'm just super grateful for that. I think if people are looking for, to make this sport not so much of a selfish solo endeavor, it just makes the sport so much more fun. Like, we all stay together at Kona, we party after the race, we have team camp in Las Vegas. Yeah, we hammer on the bike for 100 miles and try to drop each other over and over, but we also like go out and ended up having some bottle service at a club in Vegas this year, which was a 3 a.m. McDonald's Homer Stretch limo kind of night. So like we have fun. Everyone, I think from the outside looking in, thinks we're like all these hardos that just take the sport way too seriously. It's just not true. We're just, strong athletes that have been doing this sport for a long time. And like for years, when I was slower, it was my goal to get on the team because I just like, I met these guys training in the Bay Area. I was like, man, these guys are so fast. Like how it just blew my mind that I could actually be that fast someday. And like, little do you fast forward the clock and it's just like consistency. You will get fast in this sport, almost anyone, if you do the right type of training consistently for years. But that's what it takes. So yeah, the sport's special. We have some great sponsor support as well through Envy, Win Republic, Lululemon, Felt, Goo, Energy Labs for nutrition. The list goes on. I'm probably missing a couple more. Hyper Ice, Recovery. So having their support while being an amateur is pretty amazing. And that's a big perk and draw of the team for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that I'm someone that travels a lot, and sometimes I struggle, knowing where to go for a run or what pool to swim in or whatever. And it sounds like if you have a group of 70 people across the U.S., if you travel within the U.S., you will always have somewhere or someone that that you can make training a bit more fun. And yeah, really creating this community feeling around age group triathlon, which I think is there to some extent, right? I mean, you have those triathlon clubs, but if you're not there all year round, then probably doesn't make sense to join something. So yeah, it sounds like a really great group to be part of.
Yeah, for sure. It's awesome. And there are lots of great groups I have friends on, local groups, but Zoot, has an awesome team, and Waterfall Bank is starting an amateur age group team as well. So there's like all these other like opportunities to just be more plugged into the sport. And I think a lot of people are trying to keep the blinders on and just do it themselves. Like, it's just more fun to do something like this with other people, in my opinion, to each his own. But I like making it a kind of, it takes up such a large part of your life that when you're doing it by yourself, it can get lonely is the reality. So for me, just integrating sport into life constantly and building my friendships and social time around 5-6 hour days on the bike is kind of what it takes, I think, to excel in the sport and stay sane while doing it.
Yeah. Justin, it was great chatting with you. All the best for the entire season. Of course, starting with St. George, I'll be following you carefully. Best of luck and all the best with your wedding. Sounds like you have a hell of a year ahead of you. And
it really is. It's crazy. One day at a time.
Yeah. So thanks for being on the podcast. Looking forward to chatting with you again, hopefully after St. George.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Adam, for having me. It was great, and best of luck with the show.
Thanks, man. See you soon.
All right. Bye.